Good morning. Just introducing Rhonda for the Debian Diversity BoF, and I hope we have a good talk.
Thank you. Welcome. This is more or less meant to be a collaborative effort to see where we're standing, where we are heading, what we can improve. A short recap. The diversity team was founded 7 years ago after the DebConf in South Africa, and we had a sharing circle BoF every year since to see what people have ideas how to improve on that ground. Currently, we see a clear pushback from right-wing parties and activists or people that want to sort of fight against diversity, about inclusivity, which is sort of brought back to how the pandemic started, because they connected online a lot, and we see it still going on, and this is something that we really should have to take a strong stand against, individually, but also as a project, to not be lured into a space where we might have people that actively work against inclusivity and diversity within the project, and potentially see the pushback coming also to our community. One key factor here is free software, but also especially the Debian Free Software Guidelines, which clearly stands for that we create software for everyone. But we have to keep in mind here that there is the so-called paradoxon of tolerance, especially if we want to create an inclusive society, an inclusive movement. We need to be clear on standing against people that are working against that, and have to have a clear standing against the pushbacks that are created. So we have to make sure that we stay inclusive, because otherwise, if we include people that actively want to reduce inclusivity and push people out, then we have to do something against that. This is something that we always have to keep in mind. It's sometimes a tricky issue, but it's something that we never should forget. But in general, I think we as a Debian project are doing a good job most of the times. Sometimes there are a few itches and bumps along the road that we have everywhere, and we sort of are able to deal with it. And it's very good to see the first Debian conference here in India to also connect to this side of the world. For the most time of Debian conferences, we were switching between American continents and Europe back and forth, and sort of excluded the rest of the world. And it's really good to see that we managed to have one in South Africa, that we had one in Taiwan, and now we're in India. And even though there are people sort of complaining that we haven't had one in Europe for so long, it sort of speaks to the privilege of like people in Europe are usually easier to travel to other areas. It's the first time people from Europe had to have a visa to come to a Debian conference and know the process that others are going through usually when they come to Debian conferences. So they get a better understanding what's going on there. Yes?
Maybe I can add, I recently learned that for an Indian citizen it's easier to buy a house and get a mortgage for it than to travel to Europe and to get a visa. So it's really a lot of work.
Yeah. So
Hi, and being an Indian citizen and attending the DebConf for the first time last year, it was a task for us, like knowing that India's situation with the venue country, host country, and we don't have an embassy in India where we could apply for an online visa, and a paper visa. The only option was to go to Istanbul, which of course needs another visa to land in Turkey as well. So Indian passport also, Indian rules doesn't allow us to send it by post. We have to carry it with us to get a visa. The only option that, however, being the DebConf host country for the next year, everyone is in DebConf was very helpful to help us to reach Kosovo somehow, and the conclusion, after a lot of research, the result that we came up with was to come to Albania and get our visa stamp there, which Tirana had an embassy for Kosovo, so we could only reach Albania last year because Albania had an open policy to Indian citizens that we could go travel there without a visa. So we could just carry our passport and visit Albania. And meanwhile, we also applied for a paper visa in Albanian Tirana embassy. So it was under process, but we didn't get any reply from them. Like there wasn't any reply from them that we will get visa or not. So we were very unsure about what's going to happen next. And somehow we all took the tickets and went to Albania as tourists. And then there we waited. Finally, on the day before the bus we booked to Kosovo, we got an intimation from the Kosovo embassy in Tirana that our visas are ready. And we were really in a relief that we could finally attend the DebConf. And we went to the embassy, and there were 10 of us on that day, and 9 of us got the visa stamped, and only one person couldn't because that person's name had some issues, and they could change it later. They asked to wait for another day, but still, thanks to our Kosovo team, they put pressure on the embassy, and he could get the visa stamped on the same day as they had immense work going on there, and all of us could travel together to Kosovo and attend the conference. Thanks to the Kosovo team, they had done a great job over there that we could attend once. And yes, for the previous years, we weren't even willing to apply, knowing that most of us don't have good travel history. So it's very unlikely to get a visa to Europe since we were students or mostly employed for very few years. So those with good and stronger passports, it's easy for them to get a visa to European or United States, countries like that. But being in a country like India, I think there is a situation with a visa, everyone needs to get a visa, but I think this process is pretty easy for most of you, considering I'm not comparing, but I don't want to belittle anyone, but still, I think you could all get a visa in under 24 hours after you applied, because there is a processing system, and yes, I agree that people had to go through like waiting time for getting the conference invitation letters and etc. That's another part of the bureaucracy. But still, we all are happy to have you all here finally. Like, it was a very tense moment for us when we were getting like replies like could be get delayed, but somehow we managed to work out all of this, and thanks to everyone for being here with us. Thank you.
Thanks for helping us through the process. It was
Thank
very
Yes.
well done by the local team. The support was clearly there. Well prepared, everything.
Yes, applause to the visa team.
Thanks for this introduction. I have also some other story because I had an GSOC student from India when we were in Banja Luka, and he had to travel or fly from his place 3 times to the embassy in Delhi and back. And on the day before his flight was booked, he got the visa for Banja Luka. So this was Bosnia and Herzegovina. This was similarly hard, and so he tried really hard. I also know that he wanted to invite Nilesh to the Debian Med Sprint in Berlin this beginning of this year, and he also did not manage. But this was probably by the German embassy, because for whatever reason he thought it would be better to apply for a tourist visa. I just learned there's also difference between this in Germany, and they said, "Oh, you have not enough money," even if all his money to cover the cost, which would have been covered by Debian anyway, was on his bank account. So this was kind of a stupid excuse. No idea why. No idea why Germany is not letting IT people in the country. No idea at all.
Yeah.
So I agree, it's complicated, way more complicated for you. I personally was pissed off by several things, and today I've had a comparison. It's like being back in the DDR without knowing the rules here. But yeah, I somehow think I can cope with this, and it's harder for you.
We can, like you meant, I didn't mean to compare it in that way, but I mean the people from Europe who usually don't need any visa to go anywhere got a glimpse of a view of what it takes for people like from India to get to anywhere else. And this is one of the core of the important parts why we have to go there, to support the local community, to connect them, because people who usually, we go to places all around the world for the reason to connect with people locally, to get more drive into the local community, to get more energy, more motivation done there, and that's something that we really should continue to do.
But what I'm really wondering is, I have several people from India seen on former DebConfs. Are there any differences between people in India? And because Utkarsh was in Brazil, and Raju was in Taiwan, and also others. So
Yes, the first time is the difficult one always. Like when you have a good travel history, things become easier. Like for a Schengen visa, if you have already granted one, then for the second time, it's easier for them. But if you got rejected in your first Schengen application, then it's very difficult for them to get another one. Like if you are trying to reapplying, getting the like interview scheduled at the right time is probably a nightmare. Like you might have to cancel your plans. But if you are a good traveler, like you said, Raju, he has been traveling across different countries for a few years, and it's pretty easy for him. I think not that easy. Like he still has to go through all the process, and but still there is a good chance of getting the application approved. But for a student or for someone with like lesser travel history, it's still like luck by chance. On that note, not only
It's red. Okay. So not only getting the visa, but even buying the ticket. So now I'm thinking, yeah, the visa, there's not too much we can do in terms of dealing with authorities. We do already all that we can. It's in our hands. But on the ticketing, buying ticket side, I think, I don't know what is the process now, but well, the regular process is that we need to buy and then get reimbursed. And I know for many people that would be a struggle. And I don't know if we made improvements already in terms of advancing money so that people could actually purchase the ticket. How is it? No?
Generally, we don't really do that. That's been made in a few cases as a big exception. But in general, people still need to buy their ticket in advance. And once they've been to DebConf, then they can get reimbursed. So it still works like that for the most part. But that is a struggle for some people to be able to attend, because if they can't front that money, then it makes it tough. There's also some people who really want to come, but personally, I wonder if someone who is really, really hard cash strapped should even come, because things like just paying taxi fare or getting around locally might even be tough. In those cases, if we make like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like an outreach bursary or something like that, I think we should make at least some cash advance, because most of the people who, I suppose it depends how much we want them there too, because we have a long list of bursary applicants, and usually we have to rank them and choose based on contributions. And by coincidence, these tend to mostly be people who can afford to spend a little bit on, you know, the basics like buying a coffee at the airport and taxi fare and stuff like that above their usual bursary. But I agree, it would be nice to, especially for the outreach and diversity budget, to be able to front that better. Or we had a discussion last year to get a travel agent perhaps that handles all of this. Then we get one bill from a travel agent that we can just pay, because they tend to negotiate better rates. They also take some commission, but usually it kind of balances out. But the benefit of having that travel agent would mean that we could have some people that we say, Debian are paying for their fees, and then we get one invoice that we can pay in advance. It's something we talked about. There was just zero time to actually get this done over the last year. So good thing to bring up. Maybe we can try again for next year and improve that part. The Treasury team is also working on a new reimbursement website, so we can build a lot of process into that, so that all the paperwork you have to do and emails you have to send and PDFs that you have to combine, that we collapse that process into something a lot more easier. And maybe in the future we can build improvements like this. Hopefully it will make it easier to change our processes than it is now, because it's already so complicated that it makes changes difficult. So hopefully we can fix that in the next year as well. That's just some random pieces of comments.
Did you want to say something before? Okay, I thought. I think that's all good points and important points also. So we mostly spoke about geopolitical or geodiversity, including people from different areas. Diversity also have different aspects, like sexual orientation, gender identity, and also to some degree I would see disabilities part of this. Like, I really like how accessible the venue this year is. So if a person that needs wheelchair access would attend the conference, it would be easily possible. That's something that we always should keep in mind, and I think we do very well on that. At some point in the past, we had at least 2 participants with wheelchairs that I'm aware of, and unfortunately they are not any longer around, which also to some degree puts a certain amount of logistical issues on the local organizers, but I think we would have covered that here very clearly. Andreas?
I think we don't think about people, for instance, do not want to attend the elevator because they are claustrophobic or so. They would have a problem here because they do not permit you to use the stairs. I don't think about. We don't think we have such one, but it's a minor point, side note.
Yeah.
On the gender diversity, even or sexual orientation, I think we could talk a little bit about that too. I've been approached by a few young women asking about Debian woman, which is not functional, like it's not actually working for a while now. And my usual answer is, there will be the Debian Diversity BoF, and I think this is the new place of where we should be gathering women. And I've actually personally invited, the past 2 days, I would see women around and invite to come here, and many of those I invited didn't come, but yeah, I wonder. So just going back to the origin of Debian Woman in 2004, it's just that there was that moment that we had very active and I don't know, it was just that particular moment in time, but on that meeting and then what happened after Porto Alegre, that I don't know, brought that much of activity and had so much follow-up events and workshops and mentoring programs. I would love to have that again at the same point. At the same time, I don't have the energy to lead those kind of activities. But could we also, as diversity, be thinking of some sort of mentoring and some sort of like getting what Debian Woman did, and just, yeah, I'm just saying that I would love to. I also didn't have the energy to lead any activity in that sense, but yeah, no, there's no activity for a few years.
Yeah, we had like a sort of Debian Women brunch in former Debian conferences, and one I specifically remember was the one in Taiwan where we sit together, and someone suggested like, okay, there's not so much momentum in Debian Women anymore, and we sort of wanted to expand its reach anyway, and like we would like to sort of merge it into the diversity effort, which back then my answer was like, I'm all for it, to see it as a combined effort, but I don't want to drive it all alone, all by myself. I would need the help of others to do that, and also I don't want to, because part of the diversity team was coming from a queer background, from people with homosexuality, aromantic, and all these different aspects of sexuality in that sense, and which is to some degree important, as we had a discussion on Debian project a few years ago, which was very painful for trans people, and also to see how the person steering the issue, how nicely people talked with him, and how strong people reacted to a trans person defending their existence in that thread. And I can see that this is taking its toll, and we've seen a reduced involvement from that trans person, and so we definitely can do better on that grounds. With respect to Debian women, yes, just the other day I looked up the organizational page of the Debian project and went over the list of the people behind the Debian Women project, and there are people there who haven't been seen within Debian since years, so it really is sort of like dormant, not existing at this time in the point in the thing, and we sort of like have to, yeah, pick it up or say it sort of belongs under the umbrella of diversity, but it still has its merits to have its specific issues addressed with respect to gender diversity within the project.
I have so much to unpack there, but I want to reply to Tasia's part first, because about a year and a half ago, when we were discussing this on Debian Vote and with the DPL elections in my platform, my suggestion was that we explicitly, I mean, anyone can request funds for anything Debian, right? But it helps to tell people that these funds are available if you want to do this. Otherwise, many people just think they can't ask for this. So my suggestion was that we have a project where we make it clear that, you know, let's say on the second Thursday of every month, there's money available if women in any part of the world want to come together and just talk about Debian, teach others about Debian, sit around, install it, or help each other out of problems, or just talk about the community and learn more. There's funds available to do this. And I was really annoyed by one person, and still is, who said that you're doing this wrong. It should be the women in Debian who lead getting more Debian into women. And I just completely disagree with that, because if you look at the already active women in Debian who contribute a lot, they're overworked. You don't want to load all of the outreach and diversity on a few people who's already overworked. So I feel strongly that it should be everyone who works together on this, and that's the only way it can work. I don't know what feelings other people have about this around here, but that's something I feel strongly about. And I had something important to add. Just give me a second. It will come back to me. But yeah, I think that's something that we can push, just getting people together and talk. Oh, yeah. Also, during DebConf 20, there was a talk about some university, I think there were researchers who did a study on Debian and how much contributors we need to function towards the goals that they did. And they did a huge statistical analysis looking at bugs, looking at security updates. By their analysis, we need about 3 times as much people in Debian that we have at the moment. And if we just, if we can just get as much women as we have men in Debian, that would at least get us 2/3 of that way there. So it's essential to the project that we get more women involved and grow on that point. Privilege is, of course, a problem. more women are likely to be raising a child on their own and have someone to care for in the world. And that free time is a huge factor of privilege when it gets to be able to contribute. In Europe, people get these huge summer holidays, which almost no one else in the world gets. That helps a lot to be able to contribute. So we need to just shift it a bit to get things rolling a bit more, in my opinion. But I'll stop talking.
Do you want?
Quickly, I'll try to be quick. So yeah, for this conference, I did reach out to women and asking if they would be comfortable speaking. Like as part of content team, I saw the applications, and I was shocked and ashamed. And so how come? Or initially we had so few from women, and I was thinking, well, how can we do DebConf with this so few women on stage? And I really tried hard to bring more women to speak, and we managed to increase a little bit the amount of women speaking. And just in terms of funding for meetings, I remember one of the high points of Debian Women, at least from the one that I was involved, was the Barcelona meeting we did in 2014, which was a moment also of great, it was celebration, like the word, it was really celebration to be together and to do something big where all speakers were women, non-male. And actually that's my approach usually, not only women, but just having non-male speakers that embracing all diversity. I think that should be the goal. And that would be something also to think, like now also with the travel concerns, it's something I don't know when we would propose something of the sort, but it's also something to keep in mind, either to, I don't know, just something that we could also do again, what we did in 2014, to have a mini conference only with non-male speakers, and led by Debian Diversity, instead of what we did led by Debian Woman. Yeah, if we want to organize another face-to-face meeting. I think Rhonda wanted to.
Yes, I wanted to come back to something that you faced when you said we need to speak more about women's issues within the project. And like you said, yeah, you need to speak about it, and I'm all for that. Especially, there's a difference between speaking for women and speaking over women. And that's the important part to keep in mind. As long as when you're speaking for women, it's like also listening to feedback. If you sort of overstep or say something that's not in aligning with what women need within the project, and that's perfectly fine. And yeah, you also mentioned the something like this unpaid care work, being able to contribute. I recently wrote a short paragraph which I published on my Mastodon about that it's a privilege to be able to contribute to free software. And it's usually people who do not have to take care of children. It's usually people who do not have to face like poverty and who are sort of in a well-connected network, have access to resources in various ways to be able to use their free time to be able to contribute. And that often enough boils down to white cis men have the resources to be able to contribute. And to some degree we sort of fighting the same patriarchal structures within the project that are hindering to spend our free time on a project like this.
Thank you, Rhonda. I just want to mention we have about 5 minutes left, so just take that into account.
Hey, hi. I think the idea Tasia bring, it's interesting to create events dedicated to non-binary people. As example, we have many communities outside Debian doing this type of thing. Maybe we can try to join a forth, like there is the Jungle Girls, Reyes Girls that works very well, pretty well. Maybe we can get in touch with those communities to do some kind of collaboration. And just have, to be short, I see that the diversity discussion is very broad. When we talk about diversity, some people think about women, and other people think about non-binary in general as trans. But also, I would like to point that also we miss a lot of black people as well. We are mainly white and men and from Western, and maybe we have to fragment the discussion to think in specific actions for specific minorities. That's any minority group requires specific kind of actions.
Thank you. Back to the Debian Women Conference or Debian Diversity, I need to admit, when I read it the first time, I felt a little bit offended because I was not allowed to speak. But then I slept over it, and then I thought, well, Debian is a democracy, and if someone tries one way to fix the problem, who am I to criticize them? So I said, well, try it, and if I have a better idea, I can do something else, right? So I actually like this idea now. And I remember in DebConf 15 in Heidelberg, Marga had some statistics. I'm not sure about the exact numbers, but I think, if I remember correctly, we have 30% women in IT, 15% women in free software, but less than 10% women in Debian. And this is a real problem for me, because why do we have less women? I'm happy. I learned you are now also a developer, but we need more. But I have no idea as a white man how I can fix this. I can only support you and encourage, but yeah, what else can we do?
Just to share a small experience I had a few months ago. I am part of a big community in Brazil around live coding, and we are in a Telegram group, almost 200 people, and we have maybe 20 women. And recently we proposed a discussion to talk about this. We have a problem and what we can do. And we invited everyone who was interested just to talk about that. To see, okay, we have this problem, how we can solve it. And in a collaborative discussion, we came out with some practical propositions to try, something feasible to put in action in a small, short term. And I think maybe it could be a one strategy to discuss the topic openly, as we are doing here, but to repeat it maybe again, but thinking about practical actions. What kind of practical actions we have time to, because that's the main problem. We are so busy, and sometimes we can't do a lot.
Okay, so yeah, mentoring, I think, is a big thing, and the other is visibility. So as I was trying to do to put more women on stage, is not because it's really because we want, when young people see their peers similar to them on stage, they can think, oh, it might be me next year. So that's the thing, when more non-binary people are visible, more non-binary people will see themselves there. not only on the stage speaking, but in the work itself. So the more we can make the work which is already done visible, the better. Just making them more visible will already bring more people, I think. And then once we see people interested, just keep the eye open. When you see there is someone, there's a potential, let's try to give some extra help, more than we would give to the rest of the crowd. I'd say, at least that's my approach. When I see there is someone with a potential that is from a minority group, I give more importance to that, because for me it's yeah, that's my where I put my effort.
I think that's more or less a perfect closing statement. Let's create more visibility for underrepresented groups within the project. We're doing later the group photo. We are also doing a photo with DebConf t-shirts for former conferences. And I usually like to have this photo create a visibility of the diversity within the project to make it sure that Debian is an inclusive project. And if you don't have a t-shirt from a former conference, please come by anyway. We have extra t-shirts that we can hand out and you can wear for that specific t-shirt. Please come around. Use this one with most shirts. And I also have a few to share. So.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So we've run out of time, unfortunately, but thank you everybody so much for your contribution. It's much appreciated. Thank you, Rhonda.